Alright, so the next rule, rule 2, is one of the most popular rules. So you see this rule more often than others. Just like when you see the parallel lines, what's the first rule you look for? The Z shape or alternate angle. So this one pops up quite a lot, and it can pop up in different forms. So the rule is the angle at the center of the circle is always twice the angle on the circumference of the circle. And again, you could have an arc. This is the arc they're talking about here. Or you could have a chord. Again, you could have an arc or a chord. That line there is a chord. Again, you could have an arc or a chord, and this is 3 different ways they could bring it. So all they're saying is, once I have this situation where 2 pairs of line coming out from the same arc or chord, 1 pair going to the center and 1 pair going to the circumference. And again, it could be different ways there. They could give them like that. They could give them upside down. But the situation is, once I have 1 pair of lines and 1 set going to the center, which we normally call O, like I mentioned before, and 1 set going to the circumference, the angle at the center is always twice the circumference, or vice versa. So the circumference always smaller, the angle at the center always bigger by a factor of 2, double the amount. And again, this is a different situation. 1 pair goes to the center, 1 pair goes to the circumference. Same thing here. A pair went to the center, a pair went to the circumference, right? So let me see this quickly with an example just to show you. And I want to show you 2 things in this example here. January 2007. So just like before, they want, and most of the time they want reasons, but you could show working as well to show how you get the angle. So we want angle M and L. So I trace it out, M and L. So M and L means I want this angle here, and LMO, I want this angle here. When I trace out the 3 letters, whatever fall in the middle. So to get angle M and L, I have to notice that I have 2 pairs of lines, 1 pair going to the center, 1 pair going to the circumference, coming from the same arc or chord this time, whatever you want. That's not the important part, it's just for you to notice it. And the more questions you do, the more you'll notice it. But you notice that arrowhead looking kind of shape coming out there. It won't always look like an arrowhead though, that's just the most popular way to bring it. Like I said, you could get it different ways, and we might see some of those different ways when we're looking at some questions later on. Right, so the rule is, once I have that situation where a pair going to the center and a pair going to the circumference, the angle at the center is twice that amount. So if I want this amount, that's going to be the smaller amount. I have to divide by 2 because it's going to be half as much. So this angle will just be 110 over 2, which is half of 110. So this angle here is 55 degrees, and that part done. I want to look at part 2 as well, because this is our next situation that's going to happen often. You see the situation here where a line coming out of the center and going to the circumference, and they form a triangle where we have 2 such situations, but we're going to end up with isosceles triangle, because since both of these are radii, we don't even need to know what the value of that radius is. But in a circle, the radius will be the same. If I was to draw a third line here, it's still going to be the radii, whatever that value was. So if it was 10, this is 10. If I was to draw next one, 10. 10, however I draw it, a line from the center of the circle to the circumference will be the radius, and for that particular circle, all of them will have the same value. So because 2 sides equal, being 2 radii, 2 angles are going to be equal, so that means these 2 angles are going to be equal. And we know our triangle is supposed to add up to 180. We do like this before when we was doing questions on isosceles triangles. So that means 110 plus those 2 angles, we don't know what they are, but it's 2 of them we have, is equal to 180. So the 2 angles, whatever they are, will be 180, take away 110. So the 2 angles have to add up to 70. But both of them adding up to 70, and both of them have the same value. So that means both of them are going to split that 70. So the missing angle will be half of 70, 35 degrees each. So angles, this situation again is a popular situation where we have 2 radii forming a triangle, making it an isosceles triangle, which giving you a next tool to figure out more angles in your diagram. So closely related to this rule, again, this is one of the most popular rules. You'll see it in a lot of questions. We didn't reach there yet, but in all of these examples that I had in the older worksheets, and you'll see some of the newer ones, all of them had that same situation, and even the multiple choice question, as you'll see, is that same situation. So the third rule is not a big rule. It's getting a little more popular now, but it's kind of like a spin-off of this rule. So you realize, if 1 pair go to the center and 1 pair go to the circumference, but I could have shoot out a next pair of lines here. If I shoot out a next pair of lines here, this angle here is still going to be 40, because 1 pair went to the center, 1 pair going to the circumference. Same thing here. If from these same 2 points I was to shoot out a third pair of lines, whatever at the center is twice the circumference. You realize once they come out from the same arc or chord, all the angles on the circumference are going to be the same. And that's all this rule is saying. Once I come out from the same arc or chord, the angles on the circumference will be the same. If I went to the center, it will be twice as much as the center. But once you come out from the same arc or chord, once it go to the circumference and they come out from the same point, those angles will be the same. And again, different ways that they could draw it. One pair went here, the next pair went here, and both of them is the same. They're just showing you different situations again. This is the arc or chord they're talking about, because you could have a chord as well, which separates the circle and you get the arc anyway. One pair, shoot up here. So let me use my colors, because I have my colors just for this reason here. So this is the first pair, and the first pair from these two dots, one of them went up there. And the second pair from these same two dots, they say once we're coming out from these same 2 points, the angle is going to be the same. Similarly here, those are my 2 points. One pair going here, and the next pair, same 2 points, shoot somewhere else, but both of them end up on the circumference. That angle going to be the same, whatever that angle is. And we will see this a little more later on. It is not as popular as this one, but as a late, they're trying to bring it back to make sure you know that that's one of your options as well.